meeting to order. We'll approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Is there any additions or corrections? And none, I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. Quarterly finance report is in your packet. Is there any questions for Nicholas on that? Hearing none, we'll move forward to the coordinator's report.
So I'll just read through this. So I've gone around to over 60 businesses. I misplaced my sheet that I was keeping track of. So, but we've got a lot of those program applications out, and businesses seemed interested, and I'll talk a little more in a little bit. I've got the SOC program on the agenda. So, Downtown Lots Committee, we had a brief meeting last month, but we're working towards finalizing that project brief, and that should be ready by the next meeting. Okay. And then that'll kind of give you an idea of if we want to move forward with any of these items, you know, what stages do you want to activate it at, and all of that. So that'll highlight that. Casting Connections, the next meeting, August 8th, 9:30 a.m. This will be a good time, I think, for businesses to come and ask about the facade improvement program. If they're interested, I did email Kathy, the chamber president, correct? Mm-hmm. The Casting Connections information so that she could hand that out to the chamber members. Community Roadside Landscape Partnership Program. The city is now working on tilling that soil, so I think next week they'll start tilling the soil, and you'll see things going in pretty soon from Sargent's. Small Cities Development Grant. We're currently working through the transfer of MIF funds for the Small Cities Development Program. Dodge County Comprehensive Housing Needs Analysis, that is now available on the county website. The Dodge County Wind High Voltage Transmission Line proposed routes. There is a public information meeting on August 20th here in Casson, and they'll be going over the draft environmental impact statement, and I also put a link to the docket so that you can look at all the documents. I'll be attending the 1 p.m. meeting. The business subsidy policy has been updated. Small Business Administration is here, and we have a guest who will talk a little more about that in other business.
Where's the next Casting Connections meeting?
Daniels.
Okay. We're not going to move that around any place?
No, I think it's scheduled there for the rest of the year, but I will have to cancel the September one because I'll be attending the U of M Connecting Entrepreneurial Communities Conference in Waseca on September 5th and 6th.
We'll move on to the 2020 EDA budget.
Okay, so the 2020 EDA budget. So we were looking into whether we could use the leftover federal MIF to maybe fund a business subsidy fund, because we've been working on moving away from the revolving loan fund. So I had a phone call with somebody from DEED this morning, and it turns out that if we wanted to use some of that federal MIF, it would have to be under a revolving loan fund. So we got out of it, and if we want to kind of recycle it, it comes back to that. And so that kind of leaves me with the question, if we want to create a EDA business subsidy fund, I think we kind of have two options to do that. One would be to levy, and the other, Teresa suggested drawing funds from the electric utility fund. And that also brings up the question, you know, how much would the EDA like to put into the business subsidy fund, 20,000, 15, 30, yeah, just put that up for discussion.
Okay, so the MIF funds can only be used for another revolving loan fund.
Or a small cities development program.
Okay, so we could transfer that to the small cities development program?
Yeah.
And could we earmark that for commercial this time versus the residential?
That I'm not sure. We are meeting with Karen Ducharme, I think next week, and we've got a list of questions, you know. If we put this towards it, does it belong in the target district? All I know is that it needs to fit the rules of the small cities, but I don't know if there are certain things that.
And I know when we applied for the small cities development grant at first, the full grant application, we had included that target zone residential district plus the downtown district.
Yeah, and we
some of
left
the
out
commercial,
commercial.
then took the commercial out for a better application. What Karen was saying is we could always add that back later. Would this be?
Yeah.
Cause I know they're getting calls on the individual side of it already. Through their day. But if we could do that for rental properties or so be it commercial, but we're still hitting the goals of the EDA. If you can ask for that, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I was under the impression that, federal MIF dollars could be, would be removed from federal MIF and small cities regulations if gifted to a different development entity. So for example, if you had like a local, I don't know, some place will have like a development corporation or something, like a private, you know, like if you just push out, the thing is you end up relinquishing any control of the funds, but, I mean, that would just be a totally separate option. I don't know I don't know whether or not that's something we want, but I just thought that was another way of using those funds.
Would that be
Yeah, and we don't have to commit everything to small cities. We can retain a certain portion and.
Through small cities with SEMCRA being our official HRA, would that satisfy that separate organization as the HRA? You know, the CAS and HRA is basically SEMCRA now.
Right, I'd say you gotta make sure whatever it is that the state is
Yeah.
on board with it. I thought there was a requirement that it be a CDO or a CDE or something that was a community, it had to be like a specific community development, registered community development entity or community development organization. You know, I mean, I guess one potential, I think maybe the Initiative Foundation's a registered group, I think. They have a list of these registered groups, but, I was gonna say they'll do those locally governed foundations endowments. That would be like one way of like seeding an endowment, like a local endowment for whatever purposes you wanna have. But that would be one other, just totally different option, I guess, if
Right.
you wanna have just something else on the table.
Yeah, I'll look into that.
As far as your question about, you know, creating our own, you know, either through a levy or a funds transfer from some of our enterprise funds, I would be in favor, of the two, I don't like the levy option right now, just with the upcoming budget that we have coming with some of the issues we're dealing with, flood mitigation and other things, there's not gonna be a lot of extra room in the budget. And as far as transfers from the electric fund, you know, we've already transferred $100,000 into SEMCRIP to do the interest-free loans for flood-related stuff. We're using the electric funds for reimbursing for the debris pickup on the curbside and other things, so, and then possibly some electric rebates. So I would say if we wanna do that, just a general business subsidy, or last year we set aside $20,000 for the facade improvement program. Do we wanna have something targeted as far as our goal for the year, another target program, or just a general business subsidy fund? Any
Do
ideas?
either or.
Okay. If there's any ideas here too, we kind of targeted the subsidy for the
And,
for the
you know,
facade.
if we got that commercial, you know, if we could move the MIF funds into commercial small cities, that would go a long way towards program goals of the facade improvement program.
Yeah,
Especially because there's a lot of interior work that people are interested in.
Do we have a copy of last year's budget?
Kind of tells you on the year-to-date, where you're at year-to-date on page
That's what I'm looking at too.
202 on the income statement.
Yeah, if you look at the
The second to last page on the back.
annual budget numbers.
Show.
There it is. Okay.
I guess in regards to the subsidy fund, I think that was kind of the intent of that, using that 20,000 for the facade improvement, you know, because we had a list of programs we were looking at trying out. I guess to me it makes sense to continue using those, kind of the funds we've already set aside, and whether that means, you know, if it seems like we don't have as much interest in the facade improvement, that maybe we want to consider, you know, say, keeping 10,000 in that fund and 10,000 in interior work or something, you know, maybe if we want to split it, but to me, it makes sense to continue using the same funds, especially since we haven't used them all up.
Right. So, kind of relocate those funds in a general business subsidy fund.
Yeah, or part of it, something like that.
Yeah, and we can talk a little more once we get to the business facade improvement program.
So what, I guess what do we mean by business subsidy, general business subsidy fund? I don't really know what we mean by that.
Well, so we adopted that business subsidy policy.
Yep.
And this would be a fund where we draw from this fund and we use it towards business subsidies. We can use it towards programs. So like if a business comes and they want to, you know, develop on the bare lot downtown, we could use this business subsidy to help meet the gap wherever that is, and it fits our own regulations and stipulations for how we use that money. So it's really up to the EDA board.
So when we, I mean, I think the idea of meeting the gap for development purposes is, yeah, makes sense. I guess I'm thinking that when we have say, development on a bare lot, we would tend more towards we tend, I think, usually to use some kind of like a tax financing structure,
Mm-hmm.
like abatement or TIF, just because usually the size of projects on a development are going to be.
That's just an example.
Yeah,
But so
okay.
if we had a business subsidy fund, that would be used towards business subsidies, and we could set up different ways for people to apply to use those funds. It's not so much that we would just be deciding how to use funds. You know, you set up the application and why do you want to access these funds, and these are the ways that we can disperse them.
Okay. So theoretically, we could use the 20,000 to have a more general fund. You could apply and still use it for the exact same purpose right now, which would be a match
Right.
of facade improvements, or you could do, somebody could make a pitch for interior work, or make a pitch for something
That's
totally
my
different.
understanding, is
what
that
we're-
it's a little more
Flexible?
flexible, yeah.
Okay.
So last year we transferred $20,000 into that subsidy fund for facade improvement
Mhm.
specifically. So,
And we've used it once or?
there's been a couple applications. You know, so I guess as far as the budget goes, back to your original question, you know, what do we want to do for the budget, levy or transfer funds? I would say keep it the same as last year.
Okay.
And we'll see if it makes it through the budget and finance and that. But, you know, if we transfer an additional $20,000 from the electric fund into the business subsidy fund, once we know if that happens or not, then we can decide as an EDA, you know, we'd like to allocate this many dollars to the facade improvement program. If there's anything else specifically to target, I think it was kinda nice to be able to go to people when visiting, you know, here's some dollars for this. If we had 2 or 3 options, say we've got a pot of money that could be used for one of these 3 or 4
Mhm.
things. And it's not just a general open. And we'll never see if we can get that.
Yeah.
We can see if we can keep building that business up to these
We can
$5,000.
set our own limitations. and-
Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So when you're putting that budget together for council, I would request the same $20,000
Okay.
transfers last year.
All right. So, that wraps up 2020 EDA budget, unless anybody else has any other comments. Okay, for the business facade improvement program, so, I've dropped off a number of applications, and I've only had the Manor facade that we approved a couple months ago, and since then, I've only had 2 applications that I've kind of seen and discussed with people. Both of those projects are ineligible because they're not for work on the facade of a commercial building. One of them has a commercial building, but it's kind of work off to the side, more landscaping, beautification. Another one is beautification. And so my question to you is, do you want to open the program up, kind of create a second program that incorporates more landscape and beautification projects? Yeah, so because these projects don't qualify, but we haven't had any other applications in since Manor with facade for facade, so I'm just wondering, do we want to open it up and,
I guess just at
or
first.
maybe split it, so 10 for facade improvement, 10 for landscaping and beautification.
I think what the intent of the program was to make things look better.
Yep.
I think we thought at first, hey, $20,000 facade improvement,
Mhm.
we might be able to target enough businesses that'd be interested in that to do that. Well, we've tried now for 9 months, and
Yeah.
either they've done it or didn't. And
Mhm.
but if we have other projects that are looking to do things that would make town look better,
Right.
business community look better, then I
I'm
would be
trying
for
to
that.
step aside because one of those applications is mine, because I and another person own the blue fence.
Yeah.
Which is not, in my eyes, not that attractive, and we'd like to, we'd actually like to have a project that, I have a granddaughter who's very artistically talented, and we'd like to put a painting, an ongoing painting of things that are important in Casson. That would be, you know, the county, Dodge County opening, the water tower, whatever, and then hopefully generate some interest of what's happening as that fence progresses, because she's in college and she wouldn't be able to finish it till a year from now. And although it is the front, we just don't have a building. We do have parking rental in the back, so.
And that brings up another issue. A second question I was going to ask, the application could perhaps use some upgrading, because the way it is, it might not be as clear. We might want to request the name and business for contracted work, especially say, you know, they're doing brick work. We don't want, you know, you don't want me being hired to do that. So, another one would be include details on how the reimbursement works, because you need council approval. And one would be better defining the projects on and off a building which are eligible for the program. And Janice said that it would take her daughter granddaughter a year to do this painting, but you only have 6 months up until project approval to complete things and get it back for reimbursement, so.
The way the project runs, I'd rather it took her a year, because I do want it to generate interest, not just over a short
Yeah,
term.
that's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
So those are some considerations.
Well, I guess I spoke before Janice spoke, I have no problem with it if it makes town look better, and we have that money set aside for that. That's just my opinion. And maybe if you wanna bring us back to the next meeting, the updated application, and And I suppose to open up the project though, we would have to get council's
So it
approval
does-
on that.
we'd have
Because
to,
council
yeah.
approved
Just put a
the last
time,
one.
time crunch on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause it has to go, 'cause right now it's approved as just as a business facade.
Right, on the building.
On a building only, because that would generated income back to the community.
There's one
Which-
project, or sorry.
The project we had is not the facade.
Right, right.
And I've already wiggled a little bit.
Yeah. But yeah, it would have to come back for our approval and then council approval, like Chris was saying.
Which we need the 21st.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Could it be a future building site? Because we were talking at another meeting, about having a skating rink and having a warming house or something, that could be painted or decorated in a way?
No new construction.
Oh,
It's
no,
one of those
okay, that was my
situations.
question.
Yeah.
Can it be any new construction for the future? That would be
Mhm.
sort of cool.
Yeah, it's not improving.
So, I'd like to be able to incorporate these projects, but I guess the time crunch with reworking the application to open it up a little more and then getting council approval.
What's the other project?
It is the rock in front of the Legion. They wanna
Mhm.
they've had issues with water drainage now that the rock is there, and so
Oh.
that's a little not within the nature of the program, and they wanna put a concrete pad beneath it and a little
Rain garden or something?
roof on top of it.
Mm,
Which that
that'd be
keeps people
cool.
off of it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, are they
This is
sitting on
fun.
it? Oh.
Oh.
Yeah, I guess I make a motion, to recommend to the city council that we, expand, the business facade improvement program to, be the business facade and facade improvement and beautification program, and, to work with staff to develop the language, in the programming to allow us to do that.
Would it work to rework the application for council approval, or would we need to go through the EDA first?
I kind of run into a little bit of a problem here too, is we need a quorum, we need a
Mm.
majority to vote.
Mhm.
And if Janice is stepping aside, we don't have
Right.
4 votes.
And,
Yeah,
So
sorry.
bring it
Much
back, so if you bring it back to the
better.
next EDA meeting, that application, then we can get it to the council right after
Yeah,
that.
right. 'Cause that way we can see the application too and see,
Mhm.
Right, unless we have Mike come up and.
Yeah.
so.
And one
But
option is
it'd be
to-
nice to see what we were gonna approve
Yeah.
here first before we send it, 'cause once it's there and it's approved,
Sure,
it's,
makes sense.
you know,
One option maybe would be to work with the applicants so that they would have a ready form.
Upon approval, is that what
But-
you're saying?
Kind of pending council approval, pre-approval of these projects. I don't know if that's, too much wrangling around.
So this is a business facade improvement program,
Mhm.
not a business building. Where did you get the building part?
So it needs to be a commercial building to
That's
have a
part of it.
facade.
But that's what it says in there, because I mean, you keep saying building, but you keep describing
Well,
it
a
as
facade is
business
part of
facade.
a building. So you need a commercial building to have a commercial facade. And a facade is mostly the front facing part of a building, but it can really be any kind of street view or facing part of that building.
So either way, we need to rework the application
Mhm.
with, you know, basically Tom's motion that we can't take action on.
Right. So, I guess I'd move to table my motion. That's the right thing to do.
Yep,
Yep.
yeah, that would be.
So, Robert would be really happy with you, he'll probably be.
Okay, so if we could have that for the next meeting.
Yeah, I'll get things ready for the next meeting. So, I'll have prepare an application and you can review it and Okay, so that takes care of that. Cash and Connections agenda,
This
like I-
doesn't end, this program doesn't end shortly?
so it ends in November.
Okay.
November
I was gonna say
7th.
maybe we could talk some more businesses. I really know, you know, those couple businesses on the end, I think, are just on the edge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So Cash and Connections, yeah, that'd be great. If any businesses, if you maybe wanna
Push.
direct them towards Cash and
Yeah.
Connections agenda if they have time, that'd be great time. If
Okay.
they have questions for me and they want me to look at things to make sure their applications check out.
Yeah.
All right, other business,
I'm sorry,
Sorry.
did we do Cash and Connections? I don't.
We're just gonna, it was gonna be that in August 8th, and he was gonna discuss more about the business facade.
Oh, all right, cool.
Yeah, sorry.
Sounds good.
That was, we were talking about it when he went through the
Yep, all right,
coordinator's report, there you
all right. That was too fast for me.
sorry. Other business?
Sorry.
We'll have Carl talk first. He's gonna talk a little bit about the SBA program for flood relief.
Okay. Thank you. I've got a little bit of literature here. The trifold is the 40,000 foot view. The one sheet is down in the weeds about our program. As I'm sure you're aware, the county was declared a disaster area by our administrator because of the storms that happened between June 27th and July 7th. And because it's an administrative declaration, the 5 contiguous counties can also apply if they had physical damage, which is unlike a presidential disaster declaration where the businesses in contiguous counties are limited to economic impact. So we are, the counties we're touching, we have a bit more than we might otherwise have available in terms of assistance. And that assistance comes in the form of low-interest disaster loans. The limits are the same as they are at any other declaration. Homeowners with physical damage to their real estate can borrow up to $200,000 to repair or replace. They can borrow up to another $40,000 for damaged personal property. If you're a renter, you can also borrow up to $40,000 to repair or replace personal property. That does include automobiles, but it is limited to the amount of the damage. You can't say, I want $40,000 for my one-bedroom apartment, because you probably don't have $40,000 worth of stuff in a one-bedroom apartment. Businesses can borrow up to $2 million, beg your pardon, for either physical damage, economic injury, or some combination of the two. Now, the interest rates are well below market. As you can see on the table, home loans are down at 1.938% in most cases. Business loans are 4%, and that is fixed for the life of the loan. The life of the loan can go out as long as 30 years, depending on what it takes to make recovery affordable. If you're only borrowing $10,000, you probably don't want to take 30 years to pay it back. But if you have to, if that's what it's going to take to make it work for you, we can certainly do that. The first payment is deferred 5 months from the date you sign the note, so you've got about 5 months to start making repairs before we ask you to start paying it back. They are direct loans from the U.S. Treasury. They do not go through a bank like the SBA 7A loans do. They are directly from Uncle Sam, and you pay Uncle Sam back directly. So that's really the 40,000 foot view of what we have to offer. Now, there are some criteria. You have to have enough income to be able to handle an extra payment without a hardship. And I say it that way because nobody wants to take on an additional payment, especially for something like this. It's not a vacation, it's not a cruise, but you have to do it to get your home or business back in order. As long as you can do that without a financial hardship and you have a credit acceptable to the SBA, we can look at making you a loan. If not, we have in Minnesota the good fortune of having a program called the Quick Start Disaster Recovery Program, which provides assistance as a last resort when either private insurance or federal assistance is not available. And Cal Greening is the program manager of that, and I'd like to turn it over to him to speak more specifically about his program.
Good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity. My name is Cal Greening. I work for Minnesota Housing Finance Agency up in St. Paul. We are the state's housing finance agency. And in addition to a lot of other stuff that we do around the state for affordable housing, not only on the single-family development side and programs and loans and things like that, and our multifamily side, we also have the luxury of actually having a wonderful disaster loan program. I think what's important to understand is that the state of Minnesota is one of the few states, possibly 2 states in the country, that actually have their own direct disaster loan program. The product is designed to meet unmet needs, as previously mentioned. Typically, to be eligible for the program, the homeowner needs to have resided in the home prior to the disaster event. The damage to the home needs to have been caused by the disaster event as defined by the declaration time period that comes from FEMA and/or SBA. In addition to that, then the funding that we provide needs to go directly to repairs of the real property for damage caused by the disaster event. So to put things into perspective, how Quick Start works is typically a homeowner will go forward and will exhaust all insurance benefits. As we know, most of the time in flood events here in Minnesota, unless you're living in a floodplain and are required to carry flood insurance, most homeownership policies don't cover flooding events. Sometimes you will find homeowners that are impacted that have a sewer backup rider. I can tell you for a fact that if you've got 5 feet of sewer water in your basement, and it was a finished basement, that $5,000 coverage that you have isn't going to go to meet that. So you exhaust your insurance benefits, you then go to FEMA and/or SBA, you exhaust those benefits, and then after the fact, if you still have a need, you're eligible to come to the Quick Start Disaster Loan Program. So where we see most of our loan customers coming from are going to be those individuals who do not qualify for an SBA loan because they cannot meet the credit requirements that SBA has in place. So once they receive their denial notice from SBA, they're eligible to come directly to Quick Start. We also see a lot of folks that have gone through the SBA process. As an example, the homeowner maybe had $30,000 worth of damage to their property. They go through SBA. They qualify for a $20,000 loan from SBA. They take the $20,000, then they're eligible to come to us for the other 10. So it works very, very nicely. Our program, unlike SBA, doesn't have a lot of the repayment options. There is no credit qualifying for the program. There is no monthly interest charge for the program. There is no income requirement for the program. There is no monthly repayment for the program. The quid pro quo in exchange for getting the funding through Quick Start is that the homeowner needs to own or occupy the property for 10 years as their primary residence after they close the loan. They do that in the 11th year, the loan is forgiven, and they basically go on with their lives. If during the 10-year time period they sell the property or the property ceases to be their primary residence, then the money is due and payable back to the state, and those loans where that situation occurs, then we repurpose that money back into our disaster loan recovery program and our disaster loan appropriations. The funding for the program generally comes from state appropriations. So this is not a program that gets funded through some sort of budgetary process every 2 years in the state. As an example, in June of 2012, if you remember, northeastern Minnesota, Duluth had the big flood, and the legislature came together and appropriated, I think it was $167 million for disaster recovery across all the agencies. Minnesota Housing ended up with, I think, around $12 million, $2 million of which went to dealing with situations with multifamily, and then $10 million basically came to the Quick Start, and we put a lot of money out on the street to help people, and people that would not have been helped because they had exhausted all of their SBA funding. So it's a great program. We're very excited about it. I'd rather be doing something different today than standing here explaining it to you, because that would mean we wouldn't have had a disaster, but fact is we have them in Minnesota, and we're glad to be here today and working with our partners with SBA. And also one of my lending partners from SEMCAC is out in the office, talking to homeowners that are coming through the process, looking for assistance. So the agency doesn't direct lend to the consumer. We're the money behind all of our programs, including Quick Start, but we partner with nonprofit organizations and things like that for working with the applicants, taking the applications, processing the loans, closing them, and then they come to the agency. So great opportunity, glad to be here, and hope that over the coming months we can really help out folks not only here in Dodge County, but also the other 5 contiguous counties that are part of the SBA declaration. Any questions?
I know SBA's here through Wednesday, the
14th.
Next week.
14th.
Week
So
from tomorrow.
same for.
Right, we're gonna
Sem-
try,
Semtech.
yeah, we're gonna try and staff our office, as much as we can, again, based on, foot traffic coming through. One of the things that's important to remember is that in my world, it's all about building relationships. So we are gonna be talking with our partners here from SBA, so if for some reason we don't have someone here, they are gonna be very familiar with our program. We will be collecting names and information from our SBA partners that will get funneled over to my lender at Semtech, Cindy Vitsi. So again, we will be reaching out from that standpoint. Again, if we're not here or something like that in the next week, I've already had a conversation with Nancy, and she's also going to be passing out some of our FAQs, and I'll see, you had one?
I do.
You have one, and I'll get everybody a copy of our FAQs so that you have them. But Nancy's also agreed if somebody comes in the door, pass it out, collect the name. We will be entering into a memorandum of understanding with SBA for information sharing. So after the fact, then everybody that comes through the system with them here while they're here, and even after they're gone and goes directly to SBA, I will be getting that information to me, which will then go out to my administrator, and I'm working with Aaron Wegner from Dodge County, Emergency Manager, and there will be also additional consumer information coming from to me that was collected during right after the event as people were calling in. That information will come to me, will get disseminated.
What's the deadline? Is there an application
There-
deadline?
yes,
People
there-
coming in?
There is, and the 14th was mentioned, that's only the time we're going to be here physically. People can register for disaster assistance all the way up to September 30th, and they can do that, of course, in person as long as we're here. They can also do it online at disasterloan.sba.gov, or they can call 800-659-2955, and that's in the very last paragraph of the second page of your sheet. And we'll send them a paper application, which they can fill out and return to us, and we'll process it on that basis.
And then Quick Start is, the deadline for application will be 60 days after the SBA deadline. So I think we're talking, what is it,
November 30th,
November
thereabouts.
30th, something like that. And then also on the back of our FAQs are information about how to get in touch with SBA.
Yes.
And how to do it online and call and talk to customer service. So it really fits very well together, and working collaboratively with, with SBA. Yes, sir.
So I work up at a bank in Manorville, so we get a lot of people coming in asking about flood assistance type stuff. Is there something that I could have to, like, things to give to people or
Sure.
put on our bulletin board? I think that'd
Sure,
be
sure.
very helpful.
Sure, yeah, you can put our FAQs up there, and I'm gonna work with Aaron on getting something on the Dodge County website, that talks about our program. Also, Nancy has volunteered to put something on the city website for Casson. And, I'll also be reaching out to all of the 5 county emergency managers in the contiguous counties around that were part of the declaration, giving them a copy of our FAQs and requesting that they put something on their website. And if they can mandate down to the communities and cities in that or counties that you need to put something on your website, hopefully they will do that. So again, we try and take a real kind of shotgun approach to outreach, because time is short. What we know from past disasters is that people get traumatized. Let's see, we're going back to school in less than a month. And then the holidays will show up, and then everybody kind of loses sight of application deadlines, and, oh gee, I still didn't fix my basement, or I didn't fix this, or I didn't fix that. So this next couple of weeks are gonna be really, really very important about getting information out. But I'll get you some.
I can get you some more of those tri-fold brochures. We also have the little color 8.5 by 11 you may have seen that's got our name, and it's got the QR code that they can just hit. And that's easily duplicated, certainly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And on the back of our FAQs, you will see I've listed Semtech's information, their address in Rushford, and then Cindy and Amber, and I think Semtech has an office right here in Casson. So, the folks there have been alerted to what's going on here. And so those contact names and phone numbers in the counties are, I only have one administrator for this disaster, which is kind of nice. Last year in southwestern Minnesota, I had 3 across like about 8 or 9 or 10 counties. So it works, I think it's gonna work very well for everybody.
Yep.
But getting the word out in whatever way, shape, form, that we're here, we're available, you've got a limited time period or whatever to get the process.
September 14th, is that what you said?
No, September 30th for filing. We're here through August 14th physically, but September 30th is the actual filing deadline.
It's right there.
Can that go out in the utility bill?
Yep.
Oh,
Mhm.
not everybody does.
No.
That.
Media and, yeah,
I wonder
there's so
if
many
that's-
medias, you can't reach everybody by one anymore.
Yeah, last Friday, after we got the SBA declaration and the information that President, I went out door to door in some of the most affected neighborhoods and handed out flyers to everybody, and I posted on social media, the Democrat and.
I couldn't even see the whole thing.
You have to click on it.
Oh, I tried that.
Yeah.
Still was this little thing.
Yeah, and I think the messaging that I like to share with organizations that are involved in this is that it is a defined application time period. And so, in some cases, you're gonna have people that are so traumatized by what happened, they can't make a decision. You're gonna have other people that, again, are just gonna simply forget. You know, the reasons for not applying, you know, are numerous. The problem is that once those application deadlines come and go, that's it. And so then that, you know, that creates a problem, and especially in this part of the country where in a mere 2 months we'll be turning on our furnaces. So if somebody had damage to a furnace or something like that and just thought, oh, the water went down, oh, it looks fine, oh, it's probably gonna work, may not.
They have to have it checked out.
And so then again, and I know some communities that I've run into with disaster recovery have mandated that if you have, you know, 6 inches of water in your basement and your furnace is impacted, it's automatically out the door and needs to be replaced, cannot be fixed or anything else done with it. So again, well, because people don't do things that they should do in the furnace, depending on, you know, how much water actually did impact that furnace, could make it faulty, could
Depending
blow
on
it.
the control board.
Yeah, you
Right.
got problems, and you don't wanna get to the middle of November and it's, you know, 40 degrees out and find out your furnace doesn't work.
Yep.
So it's important about
How,
going.
how is mandating
I'm
I do with my
I'm
furnace gonna
in a
change
situation like that, but I just, I'm working with United Way, with my business, and helping Dodge County out through the Dodge County Fair to
Mhm.
get information out for help too, on beyond what you're talking about. But, low-income families with, family services,
Mhm.
are you jotting down and working with SEMCAC? You just mentioned a couple, but, where federal laws don't protect, especially low-income families, from doing the very thing that you're saying. Like if a furnace is out, maybe they didn't even know the water got in there, you know,
Mhm.
in the furnace, that they have to have it checked. But then if the furnace doesn't work or you get mold in your house, that, you can get in a situation where your house is inhabitable.
Oh, yeah.
And the
Yeah.
thing is then you can't work your business, you can't work your home, you're stranded. But the other thing is that we don't know some of those federal laws that need to change, is that you can't change electric heat if you put electric heaters in there to gas, or you can't even get gas delivered once your house is
Yeah.
inhabitable, or get your furnace changed out. Now you have to go through a whole nother process, and it's overwhelming. So are you jotting down, notes for federal laws that need to change in order to keep our people in their homes for some of the very reasons during these disasters?
I would imagine, the short answer is, I don't know.
No, but I mean, as long as you're working with SEMCAC and family
I would
services and all
assume that they probably would be then.
when they're coming in with questions is to,
Yeah.
or that once your home is inhabitable, if you leave your home, you've abandoned your home, so now you don't get assistance.
Mhm.
See, some of these critical things that are putting people homeless
Yeah.
and don't even have homes.
Yeah.
And it's federal laws that need to change.
Mhm. Yeah, I would imagine that they probably are collecting information, because I get information that bubbles
I hope
up to
so,
me,
because
you know.
it's,
And I think, and you've hit on a valid point, and another reason for the, you know, for the application piece is that a lot of folks with finished basements will have, you know, 2 or 3 feet of water in that basement. They go in, they think it's dried out, they don't tear out the sheetrock. They don't tear out the insulation, they don't sanitize the walls, they don't do anything. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, the application period has come and gone for both programs, and they've got mold growing out of the ceilings, they've got mold growing out of the walls. In some cases, I've seen, scenarios where water gets in between the block, and in the wintertime it freezes, and then it expands in the spring. So the point being is that you may think as a homeowner, you were impacted, but you may think as a homeowner that you've got everything under control, and no, I don't need to apply, I can handle it myself. Don't let people fall into that category. Apply. Get through the process, get your application in, because then somewhere along the line, somebody's gonna come along after the fact, Centac or whoever, and say, okay, John, do you still have an issue with your property? Did you do this? Did you check this or whatever? At least you've got yourself in the queue, and ultimately you're gonna have to make a decision. But the point being is if you give it up and you miss the application period because you think you've got everything covered and you can fix it on your own, you lose out on a potential opportunity.
Right.
And we see this happen with every disaster.
And we encourage people to apply.
You're for homes.
What's that?
You're for homes, not businesses?
Homes, correct.
Yeah.
Solely for homes.
Because we have business owners, we have three.
Well, homes and businesses are in the same boat as you said, describing. And what we encourage people to do is to fill out the application, because there's no cost, there's no origination fee, there's no points, there's no closing costs or anything. If you are approved and you decide, maybe I don't need it, we can basically put a pin in that for up to 6 months. Give you time to assess, and if you develop something like mold, or you get some cracks that you hadn't seen before, you can call for it to be reactivated. It's already approved, it's sitting there waiting for you, and if you decide not to, there's no cost other than the time that you spent applying.
And then we kind of piggyback along on with what they're doing. If there's an application sitting there, we're going to, even though our application period may have come to an end, we have applications in the queue that sometimes take months to resolve. So from the time the disaster occurs with the declaration until I wrap up the last loan in my program, it could be a year, it could be a year and a half, it could be 2 years, it could be longer if there's buyouts, which we had in 2010 in southeastern Minnesota. So again, the important piece is apply, go through the process, and at least, hedge your bets from the standpoint of you've got opportunities.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, I'll get some sheets and.
I spoke with Nancy. She is going to wait to present at the next meeting. She'll have something more put together, and we'll discuss.
Yeah, and we'll have it all out with the river damage between Mantorville and Wasioja, and the project moving forward for the whole Stagecoach Road and all of that. But I'll print out with him who I am, what we're looking forward to doing, and how we're planning to put that into the whole comprehensive plan and rivershed project.
So that's it for other business.
We got any items for September EDA? We have the loan. We'll have Nancy's. And then, anything else, anybody else have on the radar for right now? If we have any ideas, we can send them to Nicholas. Being that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.